Hello, and welcome to the Red Bank Humanists podcast. Each month, Red Bank Humanists hosts a public forum featuring speakers and topics covering a wide range of subjects of special interest to the humanist community. To learn more, including information about our monthly book club and our Drinking Post-Theologically events, visit redbankhumanists.org and follow us on Twitter at Red Bank Humanists.
I am absolutely delighted to introduce our special guest speaker today for the forum. Dave Silverman is not only the president of American Atheists, he was also the creator and executive producer of the Reason Rally. Dave has been an atheist.
All right.
Dave has been an atheist since he was 6 years old. He became an activist when he was a little older in 1996. I've known Dave since 1997 when we both worked in the old Bell Labs building in Homedale. There, Dave founded the Alliance of Lucent and AT&T Atheists and Secularists, which was the first employee club of its kind. The meetings commonly involved me, Al, and Dave in a conference room with our lunch. However, it was a very small club. Dave and Al had the opportunity to debate some creationists from a religious club, also based in the building. It was an incredibly packed event, a small conference room with standing room only, and good guys won. And it was also during this time at Lucent that Dave became the New Jersey State Director for American Atheists. Dave has appeared on most major news programs, most notably, in my humble opinion, The O'Reilly Factor, which, according to the New York Times, is the highest-rated news program on cable. During Dave's appearances on The O'Reilly Factor, he has made famous a facial expression which screams, "Are you out of your bloody mind?" without even saying a word. I sent Dave email a few weeks ago asking what topics he'll cover in his talk today. Among others, he's going to talk about why and how it's important to be a expletive representing part of the male anatomy, and why we should also all be expletives representing part of the male anatomy. And I'd like to rephrase that. Al and I typically talk about people we admire who've changed the world. Typical traits among these people include that they emphatically bring key issues to public awareness without bearing to social pressure. They ruthlessly expose nonsense, even when that nonsense is the accepted norm. They courageously confront and question authority without fear or hesitation, and they relentlessly expose violations of rights of their constituents. I'm pretty sure Dave's going to change the world. At the very least, we couldn't have a better or more outspoken spokesperson. Please join me in warmly welcoming our special guest speaker today, Dave Silverman.
Thank you, Deborah, for that wonderful introduction. It's great to see you again. Great to see you again, Al, my old debating partner. One of my first debating partners, actually. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Silverman. The reason that I'm named Dave Silverman, my parents were originally going to name me Jew, but they decided it wasn't Jewish sounding enough, so they called me David Silverman instead. That's the only joke I've ever actually thought up on my own that's actually funny. So, the piece of the male anatomy that Deborah was talking about refers to a speech that was given at TAM a little while ago called "Don't Be a Dick," and I really didn't like that speech because when people talk about "Oh, don't be a dick," I hope nobody's offended at that statement. I hope nobody's offended at that because this is New Jersey and. This is New Jersey. I'm what they're talking about. I'm the dick that everybody's talking about. I'm the bad guy. And what that means is that I dare to speak the truth. and I dare to speak the truth emphatically, and I dare to speak the truth to people's faces, and I dare to speak the truth even if people don't like what I have to say. So while we're getting this set up, I'll just give you some background. American Atheists was formed in 1963. That means we're heading into our 50th year now. By Madeleine Murray O'Hair. Madeleine was the first person to go to the Supreme Court as an atheist and demand equality. Demand that the government does not prefer one religion over another, or in her case, religion over non-religion. So since then, American Atheists has been known as the Marines of the free thought movement. Now, a lot of people think that the atheist movement is disorganized, and it's really not. There's a bunch of different organizations doing different things. We all have our own market segments, and American Atheists, well, we're the dicks. So I'm going to tell you a little bit, quite a bit actually, about what American Atheists has been up to and why. We're going to talk about the billboards. We're going to talk about the reaction to the billboards, show you some reactions, show you some of the effects of the billboards. And then I'm going to talk to you about the lawsuits that we're filing, that we have filed, that we are pursuing. And hopefully you'll understand where we're at. And over again, you're going to see a recurring theme. You're going to see a consistent theme, that we are the Marines of the free thought movement. Well, what does that mean? You know, we call ourselves the Marines and they call us dicks. What does that mean? It means we're standing up and shouting loud. It means we're raising our fists, we're raising our voices, we're raising our picket signs, and we're making changes even if some people don't like it. We're doing the things that need to be done even if they're unpopular. And you're going to see that as a recurring theme throughout this presentation. So what is American Atheists doing and why? So what are we up to? Well, first I wanted to show you this. I don't know if you can see this. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is Richard Dawkins, and this is 30,000 atheists at the Reason Rally. And Tim and Lisa, I think you're right around here. This was an epic event. It was not an American Atheist event. I was the president and the creator and the executive producer, but it was not an American Atheist event. This was a movement-wide event. And I will just go on and say that, yes, we had 30,000 people. Yes, that's the largest atheist event in world history by a factor of 10. Yes, it was in Washington, D.C. Yes, it was raining for most of the time. And everybody in that crowd had a great big sore smile at the end of the time because they had a wonderful time. But what was most important about that Reason Rally, maybe not most important, but one of the most important things about that Reason Rally was it was the first time in American history that every organization in the atheist movement was involved. Every national atheist organization was involved with money for a common goal. Those of you who have been in the movement for a long time, like Al, will remember a time when the atheist organizations didn't like each other. Now, back a couple decades ago, back a decade ago, it was an effort to put the egos aside and to sit down and talk. This did not happen with the Reason Rally. With the Reason Rally, the AHA, the CSH, the FFRF, Atheist Alliance, all of them got into one room virtually, elected me president, and allowed me to run this thing with money because everybody was treated fairly and everybody was treated equally. Now, what does this say? Well, first of all, it showed our members that we can do it. Most importantly, it showed us that we can do it. And that when we do it, when we put our crap together, when we put our crap aside, I should say, and actually concentrate on something successful, not only are we successful, we're wildly successful. So that's all I'm going to talk about the Reason Rally today. I hope those of you who went had a great time. We'll see you again in 2016, and I'm not going to run it. because that was the most work I've ever done in my life, and I'm done. So I'll talk about the billboards and the publicity and the reactions that we get from the billboards and the publicity. Then I'm going to talk about the lawsuits. We've got three serious lawsuits going on. They're not frivolous lawsuits. And they're not minor lawsuits. They're huge. And my personal opinion is they're all bound for the Supreme Court. And yes, that new one at the bottom, American Atheists is suing the IRS. And we're going to get into that in a second. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the convention that's coming up, which is going to be our 50th annual convention. It's going to be our 50th anniversary convention. And then I'll close off with some closing thoughts. So let's talk about some publicity. The publicity that we have, the billboards that we have, is always coordinated and it's always strategized. The primary target of our billboards is the press. Always. It's always the press. We put up a billboard. It's so funny because people don't understand this. We put up a billboard. It's got a lot of words on it. And they say, oh, Dave, you've got too many words. People are driving by it at 55 miles an hour. It's not in a very good location. They're not going to see it. And then the billboard gets printed in the newspaper where people can look at it on a much larger scale. It goes on the news where people can see it on a much larger scale. And this is why the primary target is always the press, because that's how we get the biggest bang out of our members' dollars. So it must be visually interesting and it must be newsworthy, right? That's what it means. It means it must be visually interesting and it must be newsworthy so that the press puts it in their stories. The secondary audience is the closeted atheist, always. We don't try to convert theists to atheists with billboards. And we get accused of that. People assume that a lot. Oh, you're never going to convince a theist that his God is a myth just because you put it up on a billboard? Yeah, we know. We know. We know. You know, just like they're not going to convert you guys to atheists, to theists by putting atheists are going to burn in hell on a billboard. Nobody looks at that billboard and says, ooh, I better change my mind. Nobody does that. That's not the target market. So we want to make sure that we raise the awareness of the movement to the closeted atheist. The closeted atheists will read the press interviews. See how this works. The press takes it, puts it online, puts it in their paper, puts it in their magazine. The closeted atheist looks at it, raises awareness of the movement, and emboldens those closeted atheists because they're not alone. I'll give you a quick story. I'll give you a quick story about not being alone. Al and Deborah, were you at the Rush Holt event?
Yes.
Okay. So way back when I first started, we had Rush Holt came to Lucent when he was running for Congress against Mike Pappas a long time ago. And it was a really obvious good guy, bad guy situation. And he was this rocket scientist who wanted to be congressman. And I convinced him, you know, when he came to Lucent, I said, hi, I'm the state director of American Atheists, and I'm president of the Alliance of Lucent and AT&T Atheists and Secularists, and if you win, would you please come to one of our events? And he said, yes. And he won, and he came to our event. And Al and Deborah were two of the 19 people who showed up to see a congressman at an atheist event. And now you guys are here to see me, and there's got to be about 50 people here. So the reason that I wanted to digress on that is that it is very, very atheism can be very, very isolating, okay? And people don't understand how many atheists there are. They need to. They need to see it. Because of the atheists in this country, about 99.9% of them are unaffiliated with any organization at all. So we need to increase the awareness of the movement. We need to make sure people know that not only are they not alone, but there's a movement behind them fighting for their cause, a 50-year-old movement, a mature movement with great activists fighting for their cause on multiple fronts. And then, yes, of course we want to increase the membership of the movement, because the membership doesn't just help us, it helps the members. They're belonging all of a sudden. They're part of something. And they're also helping. So we also need to do that. And then there's the tertiary argument. The tertiary market is the theists. Now, the theists are our target market, but not because we want to convert them, because we want to get them talking. Okay? We want to get them talking because who are they talking to? They're talking to the closeted atheists in their family and circle of friends. They are a marketing tool. Did you hear what those atheists did? They have this great big $25,000 billboard in Times Square. There's an atheist group with enough money to put together a $25,000 billboard in Times Square. This guy right here, you can't see the picture, I apologize. But that's a preacher. This is a preacher preaching in his sermon about the American Atheist billboard. How perfect is that? How perfect is that? And he doesn't say anything about it. He just says, he calls it a myth. That makes me so angry. We have to be more like Jesus. We have to And he starts, but what is he also doing? He's telling every closeted atheist in those pews that there's an atheist movement out there. He's spreading the word for us. The theist is not a target for conversion. They are a marketing tool. And they will be treated as such. So let's look at some. The Atheism is Patriotic banner. Now this is not photoshopped. Okay? This is just one of the things that we've been doing over the past year. This is not photoshopped. This says, Atheism is Patriotic, atheists.org, flying over the Statue of Liberty on July 4th at sunset as people are getting ready for the fireworks. This banner flies across the Statue of Liberty. And it was picked up. And everybody was talking about it. I was there. You were there. Everybody was talking about this. As it flew by, it became the topic of conversation all up and down the river. And CNN picked it up. In fact, that picture was taken by a CNN photographer. Next, shame on Mormonism. Just another billboard that we had, but nobody was talking about the implications of having a Mormon president. Nobody was talking about the fact that he gave millions and millions of dollars to an organization that spent $20 million in California to enforce their religious beliefs on non-adherence. And we have to identify it like that. When the Mormon Church spent $20 million to defeat Prop 8 in California, they were using their money to push their religious beliefs on non-adherence. That's what they were doing. They weren't expressing their beliefs. They were using their money to force their beliefs. And we weren't talking about it. Nobody was talking about it. So we decided to put up a Mormonism billboard, and we couldn't get anybody to put up a Mormonism billboard. So we put it on a truck. And we followed the Mormon camp outside of his debate. That's a story. Do you see how we're creating stories when we do our press? This is a story. This is the story. Mobile billboard followed Romney. That's a story. That's what gets printed. What does it say? Shame on Mormonism. What do they do? Well, it was a visually stimulating board. I didn't have room for it on this slide. It was a visually stimulating board. So all the press that picked it up showed a picture of the billboard. That's great. That's exactly what we want, right? Because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll call us an atheist group because they don't want to plug us. But if the billboard is visually stimulating enough, they'll show the billboard, which has our website, which has our name. Oh, yeah, it all makes sense. Or at least in my mind it does. And this is the new one that just came down. Keep the merry, dump the myth. Keep the Mary, Dump the Myth. A $25,000 billboard at Times Square over New Year's Eve. That's a good one. Huge. It's a softer message, but there were still many stories about it. And, you know, we call religion a myth a lot. And when we first put this up, I got a call from CNN, and one of their first questions was, why are you going so soft this year? Okay. We actually didn't expect this to be a hard billboard. We picked that graphic because it was a picture of Jesus that wasn't gross. It was not gross and it wasn't cute. And the clip art of Jesus, it's either gross or cute. Okay? And we wouldn't want one that was, because they have a Jesus where he's on the cross and the eyes are bugging out and the blood is dripping down. It's kind of really awfully grotesque. But we wanted to put this up there to give the idea, to reinforce the fact that Christmas is becoming a secular holiday and it cannot be stopped. And this is what got me on, this is our war on Christmas. Okay, if anybody ever wonders what the war on Christmas, a billboard. That's the war on Christmas. That's what got me on Hannity and O'Reilly and Varney and CNN and CNBC. That's the war on Christmas. A billboard. We are trampling the rights of Christians. Trampling the rights of Christians. And I'm a fascist. And I'm a narcissist. And I hate all religious people. That's what they say. Because we put up a billboard that says keep the Mary and dump the myth. Now, again, visually stimulating. Again, visually interesting. Not just words, good pictures. So they showed this on CNN, complete with the logo and the and the CNN was a great example because they didn't talk about the name of the organization in the CNN article. They just skipped it. But they put the billboard up because it was visually stimulating. And so they left it up. And so everybody got it out. So how does it work? Well, there's me on Stuart Varney. Stuart Varney is, he really wants to be Bill O'Reilly. And if anybody wants to see a complete, it was awful. It was awful for him. It was fine for me. It was fine for me. They were desperately trying to make me out to be a bad guy. I think I successfully made him a bad guy because he actually made jokes about Madeleine Murray O'Hare. You know, the woman who was kidnapped and murdered with her son and her granddaughter, who was raped before she was murdered in front of her grandmother, and then they were buried in a shallow grave. And that's so funny. And this is the joke. He was making jokes about that. And a lot of people say, you know, why do I go on these shows? Here's another picture of me on Hannity. And you notice how the Hannity desk, they sit you lower than Hannity? You notice how they sit you lower? Yeah. Nothing deliberate about that. Why do I go on these shows? Why do we go on these shows? Because then I get this, which is one of my favorite pictures ever. This is one of my favorite pictures ever. This is Jon Stewart on The Daily Show making fun of Bill O'Reilly making a total ass of himself while he interviews me and tells me that Christianity is not a religion. Why do I go on these shows? Why do I go on Fox News? Well, first of all, because they invite me. But second of all, I like allowing these people the rope to make themselves hang themselves, to let them hang themselves. Really? Christianity's not a religion. Well, guess what? A priest 2 days later went on O'Reilly's show and corrected him on his own show. But another thing that this does is it gets our side to watch those shows. Because if you are of sound mind, if you are an atheist of sound mind, chances are you don't watch this crap. You need to watch this crap. Because you need to understand how bad our opposition is. Okay? You need to understand that our opposition is all a bunch of dicks. Okay? And and when they complain about us, that they're being incredibly hypocritical, but the problem is that nobody from our side, very few people from our side, very few atheists, watch those shows. They just go on the reputation. Oh, O'Reilly, he's a conservative. They don't understand how bad these guys are sometimes, and they need to see it. So, yes, I got plenty of publicity. Now I'm going to show you just this one piece here. Oh, it's not going to come out well at all. All right, so let me show you what this is. I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to read this at all. This is my email from a company called Meltwater. Meltwater tells me how many times American Atheists is in all the newspapers nationwide. Now look at this. What you can't see here are the numbers. And I'm going to go to the screen because I can't even read it on the screen. But starting from the bottom, it's 49 hits, then it was 90, then it's 115, then it's 80, then it's 48, 41, 42. That means that every day, American Atheists was in these newspapers all about those billboards. And this was between the day before we put up the billboard to January 1. This is the kind of press that we get. So I want you to see that it works. I want you to see that most of these people put pictures of the billboards in there. They put in quotes from American Atheists in there. This is the kind of reaction that we get. And all of it targets the press, then the secondary atheists, and then the Christians who are going to bitch and complain to the closeted atheists, to our primary target market. So, are they effective? Yeah, they're effective. Now look at this. This is the CNN Belief blog. This is the CNN Belief blog. And it's a very interesting article. It talks about Christmas exposes the atheist rift in dealing with religion. Right. They call it a rift because it's a good story. I call it diversity. I call it breadth. I call it satisfying all the market niches in the movement. And it's very, very important because it's part of the big picture. Okay? And I want everybody to understand this because a lot of people say, well, it would be so much better if you put up the nice billboards. Did anybody see those nice billboards on the news? No. Anybody see don't believe in God, you're not alone on CNN this year? No. But this went up, and what did this talk about? This talked about American atheists bashing religion. And then it talked about the Harvard Humanists, because there's a rift. The Harvard Humanists had a food drive with a local church. And then it talks about the Secular Student Alliance that had a great big solstice party. And guess what? Nobody would be hearing about the Harvard Humanists or the Secular Student Alliance on CNN without, it's a myth, on a billboard on Times Square. You see that? This brings attention to the diversity of the movement. The reason Harvard Humanists got on CNN is because American atheists dumped the myth in Times Square. That's part of the big picture. We raise awareness for the whole movement by putting up our own signs and highlighting the differences between the organizations. So we raise awareness for American atheists and the breadth of the movement, and it opens the door for other organizations to gain publicity. Because now Harvard Humanists and the Secular Student Alliance have a direct contact with the CNN reporter who called them. It's not bad. So, let's move on from that and go to smart, winnable lawsuits. Smart, winnable, important lawsuits. Now, the lawsuits, a lot of people have the impression that American Atheists files a lot of lawsuits. We don't. We do not file a lot of lawsuits. We file good lawsuits. We file good lawsuits. I'll give you a quick example. The state of Utah passed a law a few years ago. It said no roadside memorials. Then they changed the law. They said, okay, we're going to allow roadside memorials, but only for fallen troopers. All good so far. But the only memorial that they allowed for the fallen troopers was a 12-foot tall steel cross. They did not allow for variations from the cross as to the religious beliefs of the fallen troopers. Why? I want you to understand this because this is a really important point. Troopers would die and they would put up a cross on the side of the road. They would not allow any variation from the cross. If the trooper was a Jew or an atheist or a Muslim, he got a cross. Why? Because, according to the state of Utah, the cross is secular. So what does that mean? Well, if a cross can be secular, it's not applicable to the constitutional definition of the separation of church and state. Oh, how convenient. Now, when little Timmy dies at a school, his teary-eyed parents can donate a secular cross for the school. We can put secular crosses on the bench. We can put secular crosses on the top of the White House because it's secular. And when we fought it, because we had to, we were fighting against the dead cops. How dare you do that? Not now, atheists. These people are dead. They're in mourning. Not now. You're fighting against the families of the troopers. No. We were fighting for the laws for which those troopers died. We were the bad guys. We were the dicks. And we won. And we went all the way to the Supreme Court, and earlier this year, we won at the Supreme Court. That was a smart and winnable lawsuit. And what if we hadn't filed it? What if we hadn't filed it? The precedent would have been set and set in stone that a cross could be secular. And that's something that we will not allow. Because they are willing to lie. Just don't forget that. They are willing to lie through their teeth. If you saw the O'Reilly appearance, right? What did O'Reilly say? Christianity is not a religion. It's a philosophy. Why did he say that? Because if it's a philosophy, the government does not have to worry about the separation of church and state. It can officially endorse Christianity. They're willing to do anything to change the word to keep inequality in our government. That's what they're doing. And they're not nice. They're not fair. They don't play fair, and they don't intend to play fair. Just remember that these people are doing whatever they can to preserve inequality. An American atheist is doing nothing more than demanding equality. Now, in Kentucky, there's another case that we filed. It's about a little plaque on a wall inside a building, inside a federal building, that says Homeland Security cannot be achieved without the help of Almighty God. Okay. Sounds like a little case, doesn't it? Sounds like a little thing. The reason that plaque is there is because it is the number one, and I'm going to say this carefully, I want you all to hear this, placing that plaque and publicizing the need for Almighty God is officially the number one responsibility of the executive director of the Office of Homeland Security. The number one responsibility. Number two is protecting the citizens from terrorists. Number one is placing that sign up and publicizing, which is repugnant in and of itself, but it's worse because it actually requires a state employee to perform a sectarian religious act. It's not about, it's actually in his job description. So if he's an atheist, he must disobey, he must choose, he or she must choose to disobey his conscience or face fines. That's illegal. and we are going to the Supreme Court with that one. We won the original case. We lost 2 appeals, but every judge that voted against us on those appeals was an elected judge. Every judge was an elected judge. And that's why we're taking this to the Supreme Court, because this is very, very clearly not only an endorsement of religion, but it's the usurpation of individual religious rights on an individual level. If we lose this case, the government will continue to be able to require federal employees to perform religious acts. That's not going to happen. Or at least it's not going to happen without a struggle. The World Trade Center. No. The 20-foot tall cross with Jesus carved on the top of it, with prayers inscribed on the side, installed in a religious service by a priest who consecrated the ground, is not secular. It does not represent everybody who died on 9/11. This is a 10-foot tall ceiling. This is a 20-foot tall cross. And they dare to call it secular. They consecrated the ground on the World Trade Center, the public ground. And they put this in, and they said it represents everybody who died. And when we struggled, when we said no, they said, not now, atheists. Not now. People have died here. People are in mourning. 9/11 was a terrible incident. How dare you attack the families of the victims of 9/11? And we say back, how dare you ignore the 500 or so atheists who died on 9/11? How dare you marginalize the Jews, the Muslims, the Mormons, and of course the atheists who died on 9/11? How dare you try and take a religious attack and make it all about your religion? 9/11 was not a Christian event. It was an American event. And we are demanding the same thing we always demand, equality. If they're putting a 20-foot tall cross in the memorial, everyone gets a 20-foot tall cross in the memorial. Or everyone gets a 20-foot tall memorial. Everyone gets a presence. It's not a pick-and-choose situation. That's not freedom. That's the opposite of freedom. Okay? When the government says this is a good religion and this is not a good religious belief, that's not freedom. The government has to remain neutral. This is public money. This is public land. They're trying to lie. They're trying to lie. They're trying to say, first of all, that it's secular. Second of all, they're trying to say, oh, well, it's being managed by a private nonprofit organization, so it's not applicable to the government, which is great, because then all you have to do is get a private nonprofit organization to run every public school in the country, and they can put up all the crosses they want. Oh, that's kind of insidious, isn't it? Oh, that's an obvious attempt to usurp the law, to maintain a level of inequality where there should be equality. Oh, it's really, really obvious once you see it. And that's why we're fighting it. Are you seeing the recurring theme here, the Marines of the free thought? We're fighting the good fights that need to be fought, even if it's politically incorrect. And that's going to go to the Supreme Court, too. Right now, we're waiting. It's just going through the motions. When it comes to lawsuits like this, we're just going through the motions. Whoever wins is going to say hooray, and whoever loses is going to appeal, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court. And then, speaking of big lawsuits, I want to spend a little bit of time on this, because American Atheists is suing the IRS. We are suing the big guys. Now, here's the scoop on 501c3s. A 501c3, there are several different kinds of 501c3s. And for the purpose of this discussion, I'll say there's a whole bunch of 501c3 organization types, and one of those is religious organizations. In this country, every 501c3, including Red Bank Humanists, must file an I-990 form. This 990 declares their income. It declares how they spend their money. It declares who their major donors are. Unless you're religious. The 501c3, the Red Cross, files it. American Atheists files it. The Red Bank Humanists files it. Every church in the country does not. No mega churches. My salary is public knowledge. Pat Robertson's is not. American Atheist gross income, public knowledge. The Mormon Church, the Church of Scientology, the Catholic Church, no. We are not demanding that churches be taxed. This is not an attempt to tax the church. But we are talking about making them file the same forms. We are simply saying that if you're a 501c3, you have to file the forms, just like everyone else. Because, think about it. Right now, atheists are still the most hated group in the country. If you donate more than $5,000 to American Atheists has to declare you on that 990. Therefore, it is impossible, it is against the law, for you to donate more than $5,000 to American Atheists and remain anonymous. You may not do it. But if you donate $1 million to the Church of Scientology, you can remain completely anonymous. So the federal government actually puts an impediment in front of our fundraising that it doesn't put in front of religion. And why the difference? Why the difference? Because they're religious and we're not, and that is the only reason. That is the only difference. And that breaks a whole bunch of laws. We've got a bunch of laws. Now, when we file lawsuits, we file to win. We do not file for publicity, although we do use it for publicity, of course. We file to win. This is a thick lawsuit, meaning that we've got 3 different plaintiffs. We've got American Atheists, a 501c3 educational organization that obeys the law. We've got another organization, a 501c3 educational organization that refuses to file the I-990s. And then we've got another atheist organization that is trying to become a 501c3 religious organization and is being told that it cannot by the IRS because they don't believe, because they're atheists. 3 prongs of attack. 4 laws are being broken. The First Amendment, obviously, because this obviously endorses religion. If you're religion, you're one thing. If you're not religious, you're not. The 14th Amendment demands equal protection for all citizens of this country. It means that you cannot discriminate. The government cannot discriminate against any of its citizens, any of its people. Oh, and by the way, as of last year, corporations are people. And we're going to demand equality from the 14th Amendment via the 5th Amendment, which is due process. Yeah, it's going to bite them. So we got First Amendment, 14th Amendment, 5th Amendment, and here's a nice little kicker. Article 6 of the United States Constitution, no religious test. There shall be no religious test for any public office. That's what everybody knows. The second part of that sentence is, or public trust. Every 501c3 in the country is owned entirely by the United States government. You can't sell Red Bank Humanists, right? They're nonprofit. You don't own the stock. The government owns the stock. That means every 501c3 in the country is a public trust. And it says, Article 6 in the Constitution says there shall be no religious test. And if the actual code in the IRS says if you're religious X and if you're not religious Y, that is a religious test for a public trust. Doesn't matter what the end of the sentences are. So there are 4 laws being broken that we're attacking from 3 different plaintiffs. And when we're done with this suit, like I said, whoever wins is going to celebrate, whoever loses is going to appeal. This is going to the Supreme Court. The nice thing is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, or you're not. The nice thing is, we have a $100,000 donor match. An anonymous donor who is aware of the fact that when we file our 2012 I-990s, it will no longer be anonymous, has donated $100,000 as a match to anybody for this case. This is the case that's going to equalize the tax code. This is it. This is the one we've been waiting for. And when they come to us and say, oh, you're placing an undue burden on the churches, we're going to say, you're going to file a form. That's not a burden. We're not treating you unfairly. We're not taking any money away from you except for the money that you're going to pay your accountants. American Atheists pays our accountants. We have to in order to do it. That gives us standing. We have to have an accountant do this to file the 990. So we have standing. Everybody has standing. And we're not placing an undue burden on the churches. We're merely demanding the equality that's guaranteed to us by the Constitution of the United States in 4 different places. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to actually change the world with that one. Deborah was very kind in her words, but I really do think that lawsuit is going to change this country. I think that lawsuit is going to rival the O'Hare lawsuit, because once the government deals with the fact that you can't treat religious organizations differently from non-religious organizations just because they believe in God, there will be, once we know how much money the Scientologists actually make, and how they actually spend their money, and how they actually and how they actually defend their 501c3 status, I think the country is going to take a very, very interesting look at the tax exemptions and how churches spend their money, and how we spend our money on churches by force every year. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the 50th anniversary convention. We've been around for 50 years. That's a long time. Now, back in the old days, yeah, it's going to be this is going to be our largest ever. Last year we were bigger than TAM. Does everybody know what that means? Okay, so TAM, the amazing meeting, that's the James Randi meeting. Okay, a little friendly competition is good. Okay, I have, James Randi was one of my big influencers growing up. I mean, I love the man. But the amazing meeting is king of the road as far as conventions is concerned, or at least it has been. Last year, we beat them. Last year, we had a bigger convention than the amazing meeting, which meant we were the largest atheist convention in the country. Now, I'll tell you a little story about myself. I'll tell you a secret. Back when I first started as an activist, I would go to these conventions, and I would skip most of the talks. I might go, but that was not why I went to these conventions. I didn't care too much for them. They were boring, and that's not why I went. I went for the socialization. I went for the fun. I went because I could go into a room and meet 200 or 300 other atheists. And then we would go out to the bars at night. We would close down the bars. True story here. We would close down the bars, get in cabs, drive to another state, and close down the bars in that state as well. And I remember quite clearly my first convention coming back with me and my good friend Kathy Johnson, who is currently vice president, and a whole bunch of other people. We were not in a good shape because we had been out until, we went in. And the first talk, as we reeked of beer and every alcohol one could dream of, the first talk was Secularists on Sobriety. So we just sat in the back and listened. But my point is that conventions must be fun. Okay? The reason people go to, and I'm just extrapolating my own thoughts onto other people here, but I'm president, so I get to do that. The reason people go to conventions is to have a good time. They want to learn, but you can learn by reading. You can learn watching a YouTube video. People go to conventions for fun. People go to conventions to smile and laugh with other atheists. And that is why our Newark convention, a few years ago, the year before I took over, was 350 people. Des Moines, 850 people. Washington, D.C., 1,350 people. Rock and roll. With young people and old people, a diverse audience, a fun audience, a happy audience, diverse speakers, but they have to have fun. Why are we having fun? Well, yeah, this is our lineup for the people who are coming. So there's a few interesting people here. A.C. Grayling, Congressman Pete Stark, J.J. French, the lead guitarist for Twisted Sister, is coming to this convention. That's going to be fun. And you know what? He called us. He called us. He wanted to come. Richard Carrier, Bob Price, Catherine Stewart, Cara Santa Maria, Hector Avalos, Mac Dillahunty, Christina Rod, Ophelia Benson, many more people are coming. But there's more. Because, and unfortunately the screen didn't take it, but what you can't see down at the bottom, live music, more than one live band, a comedy show, a pub crawl, and our 3rd annual costume dinner. Now, the costume dinner rules are very strict. Come as your favorite god, atheist, or whatever. And it's great. It's fun. People walk through our conventions with great big smiles on their faces. There's nobody shuffling along going like this. There's too much energy in the room. People leave our conventions with great big memories, great big smiles, and new friends. So I hope you'll come to that. Now, I'm clicking through a whole bunch of things I can't see. Now, in conclusion, I'm going to wrap this up. First of all, before I get into the member page, I want to make sure that you all understand the theme here. Everything is strategic at American Atheists. Everything is anticipated, or at least attempted to anticipate. We take this position in our marketplace very seriously. We raise awareness of the whole movement. We're not here for American Atheists. I am not here for American Atheists. I will close down American Atheists tomorrow if we gain atheist normalcy in this country. And someday maybe I'll be able to do something like that. In the meantime, I want you to see that we are taking this, that the things that we do, the actions that we take, are all a part of being the Marines of the Free Thought Movement. Taking the cases that are politically incorrect because they need to be taken, even if people are going to talk poorly about us. Putting up the billboards that attract attention to the entire movement, and it works. Bringing in the other organizations in. Look at those bad guy atheists. They're not as nice as the good guy atheists. Oh, did I mention there are good guy atheists? You see that? You see how the good guy atheists get play on CNN because the bad guy atheists are doing their job? That's how it works. That's how we publicize the breadth of the movement. And that's how we win this battle. When I first started in 2010, I gave myself 20 years. And I made it public. And I'm going on 17 years. Well, 17 years left. So in the past 3 years, can you see the progress that we've made in just the past 3 years? You can see it. The reason I had 30,000 people. The amount of work that we're getting done is incredible, and the amount of progress that we're making is, frankly, above my expectations. People are coming out in droves. Every poll shows growth in atheism, growth in the nuns, and shrinkage in religion all the time. The most recent poll said oh, the growth that we just had was a little slower than the last one, but it was still growth. And guess what? It was still within the margin of error. It's not a matter of how much, of whether or not we're growing. It's a matter of how quickly. And people are talking about the recent Pew poll that said 54% for the first time in America, 54% would vote for an atheist president. That's great, right? That's good. But that's not the important part. That's not the important part. 54% of Americans would vote for an atheist president for the first time. That's wonderful. The other part of that poll that nobody was talking about, 70% of the under 30 crowd would vote for an atheist president. 70%. And that means that in 20 years, 70% of the under 50 crowd. That means we've got nowhere to go but up. That means our growth is inevitable. It will not stop. And that means that all we have to do is organize this growth. All we have to do, we don't have to preach atheism, we don't have to convert anybody, and we're not trying to. What we have to do is manage the growth. Manage the activism. Manage the activity. And that's what we do. So everything we do is donor paid and member paid. So please join American Atheists. And I will mention again that there are two funds going on right now, the Billboard Fund match and the IRS lawsuit match. Any donation you make to either of those gets doubled. So please do that. Please do that. And while I'm mentioning it, I also want to mention that if you're here and you're not a member of Red Bank Humanists, I think today is a really good time to change that. I think today, because, I mean, it's a very interesting prospect. You know, when I was at AT&T with Deborah and Al, I really didn't have an appreciation for how much nonprofits depend on donations. Donations are our income stream. Everything we do is paid by donations. I got a pin right up here, life membership for American Atheists, $1,200. But guess what? You can pay it in $100 increments, and it counts towards the billboard and lawsuit match. Because when it comes down to it, we stop everything without donations. Everything ends without donations. And that will mean the bad guys actually could win. So please donate to American Atheists. Please donate to our matching funds and join American Atheists and join the Red Bank Humanists because they need it. Follow us on American Atheists on Facebook and Twitter. I will just point out my Twitter handle there is Mr. Atheist Pants. Mr. Atheist Pants was given to me by Stephen Colbert. He put up a picture of me on his show, and he said, I'll tell you something, Mr. Atheist Pants. If you're going to be an atheist, you shouldn't look like Satan, because I had the goatee at the time. So follow me on Mr. Atheist Pants. My cards are in the back. We have some flyers in the back as well, and I want to thank you all for coming. And I want to thank you all for being part of this movement, and I hope that next time I come, we can get a bigger room and fill it to capacity as well. Thanks a bunch, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dave. All right, we're going to have a little bit of a question and answer period, if that's okay, and we'll start right here.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
Do churches pay property taxes?
They do not pay property taxes.
And why not? Because
that's another law, okay? And this is not one of the laws that we're going after right now, but yes, they are assumed to be doing good for the community. So American Atheists, now, nonprofit status is a very big term. An exemption from property taxes is not the same as 501c3 nonprofit status, okay? But American Atheists is nonprofit, and we are exempt from property taxes because we have a building that has a library that is open to the public, okay? So we provide a service to the community. You don't have to be an atheist. You don't have to join. You can just come and use our library, and it's a big library. And for that reason, we are tax exempt. Churches, just like in filing of their taxes, do not have to do that. They just have to say, we're a church, we're a religion, and they get tax exemption. But one might wonder what the implications of the existing lawsuit that we have against the IRS would have against such practice.
Do you feel that your billboard and flyover strategies are at some time going to reach a saturation point and require you to come up with yet another platform?
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it, yes. You will notice, if you look at the billboard history that we've gone through, part of the strategy, remember, all the billboards that we put up have a story behind it. Okay, it's all about giving the press, it's all about giving the press a story to write. So the first billboard, you know it's a myth. The story was outside the Lincoln Tunnel. Second billboard, you know they're all scams, actually calling religion malevolent for the first time. Third billboard, you know it's nonsense. That was against the rapture billboards that were going around. So that created a billboard war. Fourth billboard, you know there is no God, we know you're right. We had covered Des Moines with 5 different billboards, actually all, sometimes some of them were in the same area, and that was a news story. Every billboard that we put up goes a little farther, does a little more to give the press a little more story. And yes, there is going to be a law of diminishing returns. And yes, there's going to have to be strategies that we are working on right now that will, I mean, well, I mean, we just put a $25,000 billboard up in Times Square. We're going to have to outdo that next year, or else, I mean, if we put the same billboard up in Times Square next year, we'll get no news at all. So we have to do something with an eye toward news for every billboard. And yes, we are going to see a law of diminishing returns because people are going to get tired of it. But when they get tired of it, what does that mean? That means we're taking a nice step toward atheist normalcy when people get used to atheist billboards.
This might sound like a weird question. What was your reaction to the internet meme of your face?
What was the reaction to the internet meme of my face? Well, first of all, I love it. Okay, I absolutely love it. I think it humanizes atheism. I think it brings a face to. I think it broadens atheism. It broadens our reach. It's a great marketing tool. I will tell you that the first time I understood the power of Reddit, I was at on a panel, and I don't remember who the panel was or where it was. I just remember this one instance. It was right after the meme came out, and people were talking about it, and I, quite frankly, wasn't taking the meme seriously. I just didn't see it as a big thing. And I was on a panel, and we were talking about how we can get publicity for the movement. And I said something along the lines of, all you have to do is go on Bill O'Reilly and go like this. And the crowd erupted to the point where it startled me. You know, people not only knew what I was talking about, they were thrilled that I acknowledged it. So how do I like the meme? I love the meme. And I want the meme to exist forever because it's, I mean, I can't show, I didn't have it on here, but there's a picture, actually it might be on my phone, where I was at the Reason Rally. And I was off to the side of the stage for the Reason Rally. And Richard Dawkins was speaking, and in the back of the crowd, there was a banner with the meme face on it. And let me tell you something, and I think Deb and Al will understand this. I have never had a problem with my ego. Okay? Is that fair? I've never had a problem with my ego. But it is something to see your head on a banner. Okay? So that was just something. So I love it, and I play with it a lot. On my Facebook fan page, I use it as my icon a lot.
I'm troubled by the little kids who are homeschooled by these religious right organizations who they take those kids into science museums and tell them that, oh, these scenes that you're seeing about evolution, that this is all just art, it's a lie. And do you foresee any legal processes that can be used to change that?
That's a big one, okay, because religious freedom does fall to the parents. Parents are allowed to lie to their children. They do it all the time. Parents are allowed to misguide their children. They do it all the time. And for us to actually pass a law that requires them to not lie to their children is a big one. However, the one means that we could look at is to regulate homeschooling so that at least a child might be told, here is the story of evolution. It's false, but you have to know what it means. And I think that's the best we will legally ever be able to do. I think that's the best we will ever be able to do. And yeah, I've been to the Science Museum. I've been to the National Museum of Natural History, and I've heard, parents telling their children, "Oh, this is just wrong. This is just a myth." And I want to shake these people. I want to yell at these people. I want to interfere. I want to get in their faces. But we don't have the constitutional right to do that. They have the constitutional right to raise their children poorly. And unfortunately, they get to.
Just two quick related questions. Do you have any type of brief describing the details of the 501(c)(3) online? I'd love to take that back home and disseminate that.
Oh, it's all online.
Okay,
everything is online.
In terms of like the three defendants.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh, yeah, it's all online. If you go to atheists.org, it's the first thing that pops up.
Great. The second thing is, when you win this, are you going to go on to some of the other things like the pastoral tax benefits, those types of laws, or is that kind of out of purview?
The parsonage tax rebates are a part of the lawsuit. Yeah, they are, because that's all IRS. It's unfair treatment from the IRS. It's going to be years before we do that. But it is my expectation that once we obtain equality from the IRS, by legal means, by force, I think there will be a cascading effect. I expect that there will be a cascading effect, but we're not trying to do that as part of this lawsuit. All we're doing with this lawsuit, and we're really keeping our eye on this prize, is getting the churches to file the same forms and go through the same procedures to become 501(c)(3). I didn't really mention that. In order for a non-religious organization to become 501(c)(3), you have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. In order for a church to become 501(c)(3), you have to like that, and then you're in. So that's not fair either. So once we get that taken care of, then we'll go to the next steps. There's always going to be next steps in the quest for equality. But for right now, we're just keeping our eye on this prize.
When you take these various cases to the Supreme Court, you're more or less assuming that you're going to win. What is the likelihood of your winning these courses when they get to the Supreme Court, given the present makeup of the court?
Okay, excellent question. Right now, the court is 5-4 in favor of separation of church and state, okay, which is a very dangerous thing. However, this is why, when we filed our IRS court case, we didn't file it on just the First Amendment. We filed it on the First Amendment and on equal protection and on Article 6. That is there to increase our chances of winning. Now, I will tell you without hesitation, I would not file any case, and I certainly would not take it to the Supreme Court unless I was very, very confident that we would win. The Supreme Court has the authority to say stupid things and make stupid and change the law, okay? The reason we have "In God We Trust" on the money is because the Supreme Court said it's not a religious statement. Okay, I'll say that again. The reason "In God We Trust" is on the money is because the Supreme Court said it's not a religious statement. So if they pull off crap like that, we can't stop them, okay? If they say the cross is secular and represents everybody, even though it's got Jesus printed up on the top and was installed by a priest, if they say that, we're screwed. However, the suits that we put up there are based on multiple laws, multiple plaintiffs, especially this IRS suit, multiple laws, multiple plaintiffs. So if they say, if they come back and say, well, this is not an establishment of religion, which of course it is. Of course it's an establishment of religion. When they say if you're religious you can do more, and if you're not religious you can do less, that's an establishment of religion. But if the Supreme Court comes back and says, no, it's not an establishment of religion, we still have inequality, so they would actually have to say, no, it's equal for you to be treated unequally. And they would also have to say that a religious test is not a religious test. Do they have the authority to say that? Yes, they do. But we are very confident that they won't.
Yeah. I'm somewhat concerned that if the atheist organizations consider more of a threat, then the people who will advocate the atheism will not suffer such as blacklists and exclusion from community. And people will bring up that atheists are un-Americans because Stalin, who was a mass murderer, and Hitler also were not religious. In fact, Stalin was a devout atheist.
I don't understand your question.
Well,
how do I answer that? I mean, you can say well, Pope Pius and Pope Benedict and Torquemada, and those are straw man arguments. This guy was an atheist and he was a bad guy, therefore all atheists are bad guys. Well, that's a lie. And that means that it's time for somebody to get up in their face and say, hey, you know what? Everybody's got our assholes. We've all got our bad guys. Christians have bad guys, Jews have bad guys, atheists have bad guys, and we all have our good guys. And a lot of people would stand back and say, oh, well, we're not going to attack that. That's not American Atheist way. We actually go forward with that. You're going to tell me that there's never been a Christian who's done bad? Really? The Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, Pope Pius, who worked with Hitler, who wrote in his book that he was a Catholic? It's a matter of straw man arguments that we all have to be armed with. There have been atheists who were bad people. There will be more. That does not mean all atheists are bad people, just like it doesn't mean all Christians are bad people when Torquemada tortured people for countless ages until they died slowly. It's got to be something that we fight on a very hard level. And when somebody says, oh, well, you know what, all atheists should be nice, my response is total disagreement, because this respect that we're supposed to give to religion is there only because religion demands it. So why don't we do some demanding? Okay? We're supposed to be nice to religion because religion's good. It's nice to be nice to religious people. Well, guess what? It's nice to be nice to atheists too. And we're going to demand that equality. Hi, Tim.
On the suit against the IRS, you're making the assumption that when you win, the churches will have to file the same forms that you do.
Yes.
And will have to jump through the same hoops to become 501c3 organizations that you do.
Yes.
What are the chances that the IRS, not wanting to allow church finances to be public, will instead say, you know what, you don't have to file the forms anymore?
Fine with me. Fine with me. Equality is equality. Okay? And that's a very good question. Okay? Because we are not, and that goes really to the core of the question, Tim, because if the IRS does something so blazingly stupid as to say, okay, everybody that wants to be a 501c3 now doesn't have to file any forms or justify their 501c3 status. Well, guess what? I know a lot of 501c3s that are going to start forming. But they would be legal. That would be a legal alternative. It's a lot like the World Trade Center cross case, okay? There's two ways we can win that case. One is they take that cross out. The other is that they allow everybody else in, okay? And there's two ways we can win this IRS case. One is that they can make the churches do what we do, or the other is to allow us to do what they do. Either way, it's legal. Either way, it's a win. However, I want to just make a point about the public trust issue, because, and I want you all to understand the depth of the poor governance here, okay? The government owns every church, every religion. The government is a 100% shareholder of every 501c3 organization. Can you imagine being a stockholder of a company, and the company doesn't tell you how much they make? The company doesn't tell you how much they spend. The company doesn't tell you how much the people earn. Can you imagine owning the stock of that company, and the company says, we don't have to tell you anything about us? That is the ultimate poor management. That's the worst. That's non-management. It's the epitome of ignorance from the government. And so I don't think they would do that, Tim, because the outrage at the irresponsibility of the government for saying, okay, we don't want to know what any of the organizations that we technically own are doing. I don't think that they would do that. But, yeah, it would be fair.
I'd like to ask a couple of clarifications just for myself. One was in the case in Kentucky, you mentioned that I forget what the specific was on that. What was the Kentucky case?
The Kentucky case is the case where the executive director of Homeland Security is required to post.
Right. What was you mentioned employees having to perform a religious act, and
yes.
I didn't understand what that meant.
The executive director of the State Office of Homeland Security is a state employee. Okay?
Okay.
He's a state employee.
Right.
Okay? He is required to publicize the fact that Homeland Security is impossible without the help of Almighty God. So, if he's an atheist, he is forced to choose between coming out as an atheist and paying a fine, or going against his conscience and posting a religious message. And this is a very important line, because this is not about the plaque. It's not about the plaque. It's about the requirement of the employee to post the plaque.
And the other question I had was what you just mentioned there about the government being 100% stockholder in these organizations. Mm-hmm. Could you clarify that a little bit?
Well, a 501c3 organization can make a profit. They're called nonprofit organizations, but they do make profits. Okay, American Atheists earned a profit last year. We have more money now than we did last year. But we can't sell the company. What makes us nonprofit is that we can't sell it. We can't profiteer as individuals with it, because there are the shares of a 501c3 organization. They're corporations. So every corporation has shares. But those shares are 100% owned by the government. So in that way, the government owns every 501c3, and that makes them public trusts.
I apologize. I came a little bit late, so I don't know if you discussed this. But you did bring up TAM. So I was wondering what you see as the overlap between the skeptics movement and the atheist movement.
That's a loaded question. So what I'm about to say will piss off a lot of people who go to TAM. Okay? You've never been to TAM. Now, TAM is the James Randi Educational Foundation. They're not an atheist organization. They're a skeptics organization. Okay? You know what the difference is between a good skeptic and an atheist? Nothing. Nothing. You can be a skeptic and you can be a theist, but if you're both, you're very bad at one of them. And this is, like I said, there's a little friendly competition going on. We jab each other a little bit. I spoke at TAM last year, and I said that exact line at TAM, and half the people went, yay, and half the people went, boo. Because people don't like the fact that skepticism against Bigfoot and homeopathy is somehow different from skepticism about an invisible man in the sky. People say, oh, well, it's totally different. You say, okay, what's the difference? And you can hear the non-skepticism coming out. Well, I feel it in my bones. Well, I was raised this way. Well, my grandmother said. Well, my great-aunt said. But in the end, a good skeptic is an atheist. Skepticism, when applied to religion, inevitably leads to atheism. Now, if you ask the JREF people, they will disagree. They will say, no, there's a difference. We're not about religion. We're about skepticism in general, which is a much broader term than just religion. I say, yes, but in that broad term, in that breadth, should be the biggest scam in the history of the planet, the fact that there's an invisible man in the sky. Give me money.
Hi, Dave. I'm looking forward to Austin. I'm already registered. So
Good.
I'm totally psyched.
Good. Did you get hotel rooms?
Yep, I have a hotel room.
Okay, the first hotel at the convention is actually sold out.
Yeah.
This year, we had more rooms blocked than we did last year, and the hotel sold out of that block sooner and quicker than they did last year. So we have a second hotel. We have a free shuttle going back and forth. But what's your question?
Totally looking forward to it.
Great.
Just want to say I'm Karen who sent you that email that I did not support the billboard campaign.
Yes.
Okay. I want you to know I'm now a dick.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I think we have time for maybe one more question.
You made my day. Thank you.
Before we have to end this here. Did someone, who else had their hand up I didn't get to? Okay, yep, right back here. So this will be our last question.
Yes, I think my question was initially answered over here with the point that I want to ask, what are you going to do if you win? And in fact, the exemption that is now in the hands of the Scientologists and all this secrecy, is now the courts say, well, okay, you guys can be secret too. We're not going to require it anymore. In other words, the IRS becomes insane about collecting money, which as a libertarian I, of course, support. So I would love to see that. How do you think your organization would react to that kind of a victory?
Well, it would be a victory, and we would be bound to accept it as a victory. Equality is equality. And that's what we're striving for here. Yeah, it's as an American citizen, as a businessman, I think that would be an asinine thing to do, for the government to just allow 501c3s to form like churches form now without oversight. I think that would be incredibly asinine. Now, yes, as a libertarian, you oppose all taxes, so that's okay. At least that's consistent too. But how would I react? We would claim victory, and we would stop spending money filing those forms. But it would be a hollow victory. It would not be the victory that I want, but it would be a victory nonetheless. Years. This is going to be a 3 to 4 year event, and it's going to cost us close to $500,000. We would have secrecy for the donors. Yes, that would be a big plus. That would be a big, nice thing. One of the things that we don't like at American Atheists, being the hardline movement, being the dicks, we kind of discourage closets. If somebody says, I don't want anybody to know, we kind of push against that. We say, no, come out. But yes, that would allow us to take in anonymous donors and keep them anonymous. Yes. Oh, wait.
I think we're going to have to be finished. So Thanks again, everyone. A big round of applause for David Silverman. Thank you, Dave. It was terrific. Thank you for coming. I think we had over 80 people here today, which was great.
That's great. Join Red Bank Humanists, folks.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thanks again. Have a great day, and we'll see you for Darwin Day in February.
Thank you for listening to the Red Bank Humanists podcast. For more information, visit redbankhumanists.org or follow us on Twitter @RedBankHumanists.